Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, June 19th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Opening comments, Enzo?
Sure. Well, we lost someone last week, Marie Meyer. Her and her husband Chris have done an awful lot for the town. Marie was a wonderful woman, and I just want to express my condolences to the family. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Josh?
No.
I can concur with you, Enzo, on Edie Myers. Sadly, she's a great lady. Well, the first thing on the agenda is the Citizens Forum. Please raise your hand, and when you get to that microphone, I'll call you up and just give you your name and address. Up first? Sure, go right ahead.
Not because I think it's so important, just so it'll be quick, that's all. All right, my name is Angela Lowell, and I've been a Nahant resident for 34 years, and I teach constitutional law at Boston College. And I'm here to make a request concerning the northeastern signage that's been up in town for about a year and a half.
Move closer to the microphone,
Sure.
just to...
And tell me if I'm going too fast.
No, that's fine, just...
But before making this, I need to provide a little background, and most importantly, I need to tell you all that my husband's on the board of Northeastern, although he has abstained from, as a Nahant resident and a Northeastern board member, he's sort of torn, so he's abstained from any action dealing with Northeastern. So I personally have no connection to Northeastern, and most importantly, this request that I'm going to make has nothing to do with Northeastern or the situation. I am also abstaining for other reasons. I would be up here, standing here, if the sign said that the Boston Celtics are amazing for a year and a half. So it's not the substance of the signs. I and many of my neighbors feel that the billboards, the number, the size, and how long they've been up has had a negative effect on the community and the atmosphere in general. And there are examples of why the zoning law, Section 8, was passed in the first place. Section 8 lists 2 reasons why it was passed, 2 of which I think are relevant here. One is protection of the community environment, or for a non-toxic environment. Other is decline in property value, in this case, looking at a bunch of ugly signs for a year and a half, and makes the place look like a war zone. Nahant zoning bylaws prohibit all signage, generally, that's how it starts out, and then it specifically allows certain exceptions, business, residential exceptions, and social signage exceptions. Even these accepted permitted signs have restrictions on duration, on the size, and the number you can have on a property. For example, a church can have 2 signs. Northeastern signs have violated each one of them, even the small ones that people think are cute. Some people think are cute, have violated one or more of these restrictions. Last year, after these signs have been up for about 4 months, I asked Wayne Wilson if he could enforce, in his capacity as town official, the bylaws, and he said that the town council told him the bylaws as to this were unconstitutional. And I'm assuming what she or he, I'm not sure whether it was a lawyer, male or female, meant was that it was overbroad, because you can restrict signage, it just can't be overbroad. So certain restriction of signage is constitutional, but I'm assuming she said that however ours were drafted, they were too broad and thus unconstitutional. I basically didn't pursue the matter because there are a couple of people in town trying to resolve this, some people on your committee, some other people, Mr. Risch, trying to resolve this, and I assumed it would all go away over the summer, that it would get resolved, so I dropped it. But it's only gotten worse, apropos the new red signs, including the rabid terrier with a dead dove in the mouth. Okay, it's just gone beyond at this point. The First Amendment, actually, this is the only thing in the world I'm an expert on besides raising kids, is constitutional law, okay? The First Amendment allows you to make content-neutral restrictions on signs. You can't say, I like this kind of sign, but not others, but you can make a general sign restriction if it's with respect to any sign, no matter what it says. And it has to be done the right way. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, for example. That's a restriction you can make. And while you can discuss your views on the street, as long as, quietly as long as you want, you can't stand with a megaphone 24/7 on the street, for example, for months yelling. There are restrictions you can make on speech. Sorry about this. Almost done. Give me a second, sorry. Oh, sorry. So forcing these restrictions, forcing us, people who don't have the signs up, to drive by a gauntlet of billboards and sequential series of 4 or 5 signs on a lawn for over a year and a half is not just expressing opinion anymore. People are saying they're expressing their opinion. It's the visual equivalent of daily yelling into a megaphone into our faces as we drive home at night or drive out in the morning or as we go for a walk. In a megaphone every day, it's a visual equivalent of doing that for a year and a half. This week I dropped off a letter to the homeowners that had signs asking them, as a neighbor, nothing, I didn't mention zoning bylaws, I just said, as a neighbor, can you please take down your signs? I got your opinion a year ago. Can you now take down your sign? I think only one family did. They said they had it up for their neighbors and they've been looking for an excuse to take it down, and now I could be the bad guy, so well done them. So now I'm requesting, so this asking hasn't helped, none of the signs really other than one have come down, for you to either enforce the bylaws, if they are in fact constitutionally problematic, and I actually read them and think they could be tweaked a bit to make sure they're not. You've got lawyers, have them fix your bylaw. If you have an unconstitutional law in the book, it shouldn't be there. So either enforce it, because you can't pick and choose when you enforce your laws, they have to be enforced, or tweak them so that they're not overbroad, so that they allow for temporary signage for a month or two of someone's opinion, political, whatever it is. I'm not trying to be a Nazi about this, just reasonable. So you can tweak them, you have to have your lawyers do that, but it's just not fair to everyone in the community. I'm not the only one. I only came here alone tonight because I didn't want to start a back and forth, one group against another group. So I'm coming here, but take my word, I'm not the only one. I can get a sign. I didn't want to go on the petition route, all that kind of craziness, But if you want me to, I will get a petition, so you'll see it's not just me. That's all I wanted to say. It was about 5 minutes, and I appreciate everyone listening. And I don't expect you to answer me tonight, but just consider it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Jennifer McCarthy, 19 Range Road. I'm here for my annual fireworks plug, to start out with that. 4th of July is about 2.5 weeks away, and we have some funds raised. We're still not to our goal. So I need people to come and buy T-shirts and make donations, and I know they'll come through. They do every year. This is the T-shirt this year. They're $20. I will be out at Dunkin' Donuts on Saturday and Sunday morning, and all next week I'll be around. My number and address is on Facebook. I'm going to work with the webmaster to get it up on the website so people can contact me if they're not on Facebook also. We had a meeting today, the town administrator and some of the departments, and where everybody's working to make sure that it's a safe event for everybody. I would like to say that I know Tony said that Town Hall will put out publications on like road closures and restrictions and things like that. But I would like to ask people to be understanding about Bailey's Hill on the day of 4th of July. As soon as the explosive truck comes into town, Bailey's Hill needs to be closed off to the public. And most of the time people are pretty good, but we always have 1 or 2 people who think that they can still cut through. And it cannot happen. And we do have the fire and police, they help us. but some people still insist on going through. There is a huge truck there with explosives. If something happens, people are going to get seriously hurt. And also, if the fire marshal was to come, they could close down our show and just take our display if unauthorized people are in the area. So that's my fireworks. And again, all that information will come out on the website and through the town administrator. I wanted to let you know that the Recreation Commission is once again running their free Tot Lot Park program that will start July 8th and run through August 15th. It's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. till noontime, and all kids are welcome to come down. We have free arts and crafts, sports activities. We're partnering with the library to bring in some programs and fun activities, and we were able to hire 6 teenagers from town this year to work the program, so we're looking forward to that. And now 2 little personal things for me, not for the town. And I don't know if there's an answer to this, but as I drive around town occasionally, there are TVs left out, monitors. There's a washing machine that's been on the sidewalk for over 2 weeks down the street here. I don't know if we have somebody in town that enforces, like when the trash people don't take a TV monitor or a dishwasher or a washer or dryer. But I know in the past there's been like a TV on Emerald Road for over a month, and now we have this washing machine sitting here for several weeks. So I don't know if there's somebody that enforces that, but I think it's something that maybe the town should look into that. And then my other thing is, I would just ask you to, as you drive around for the next couple of weeks, if you could focus on a couple of roads. There's some town residents and landscaping companies and construction crews that are parking on both sides of the roads, and it's making it almost impossible for a regular car to get through. So I have a feeling if the fire truck had to get through or the ambulance, it would be a problem. And some of the roads I've noticed are Castle Road, Bass Point Road as you turn onto Tri-Mountain Road. You're often in the other lane, which is extremely dangerous there. Spring Road down by the dump and by Emerald Road, Valley Road, and then Flash Road. There's the crosswalk that goes into the Heritage Trail there, and it has the pedestrian sign there. But sometimes the cars will park right up to the sign, and so you can't even get through. So I would just ask you to be aware of that and see if you think it might be a safety concern, and maybe it's something that can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
It's Jen, it's a police bylaw on the trash on the curb there, and we looked into it yesterday, and we're putting a letter together to send to the resident there. You're supposed to reach out to Waste Management on bulk items, but in a scenario where they won't take it, the DPW will take it from the property. There is a disposal charge, but I've been driving by it for 2 weeks and it's killing me too, so we've got a letter going.
Some enforcement somewhere, balls being dropped somewhere.
It's white metal, Tony, washing machine. Mm-hmm. I could have had a scrap metal guy pick it up the other day. I mean, it is an eyesore, and a couple of people have mentioned it to me also, so I don't know what makes them think that they can just leave it there, but it doesn't look good, so.
Essentially, we have a letter drafted. I don't know if it may have gone out today, but a letter drafted saying, please remove it within X amount of days, or else you're subject to a fine, according to the town bylaws. So we're on it.
I don't disagree with. I don't disagree with you either, Jen, on the parking on Spring Road. We talked about parking, resident stickers up at East Point. That was brought up a while ago, and I don't think they should be parking up there myself either. But I also don't think they should be parking on Spring Road during the week, during the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, because they have resident stickers. They come all the way up towards past my garage. I'm closed on the weekend, so it doesn't really matter. But I've come home and I've driven by there, and there's no way a fire truck or an ambulance is going to get down that street because they park on both sides. So I think, say that we suspend all the parking on Spring Road for resident parking stickers. That should never have been allowed. It was never allowed when years ago. We had the Lowlands parking lot, you had the wharf, a couple of other designated areas, and that's it. And Ward Road, I'm having people that want to have, handicap parking on Ward Road. I mean, well, that just opens the door, as you well know. So they shouldn't be parking there either. It's Lowlands, the wharf, or wherever the designated parking lots are, and you know something? You can walk. If it doesn't, I don't think I've ever driven to the lot. I just walk to the beach when I want to go. So I think it's not a good situation. And I move that we suspend that on Spring Road and some of those resident parking areas that I think it's ridiculous.
The parking is allowed currently now? Or-
Yeah, well, on Spring Road, there's resident parking sticker. It says resident parking only. And it was never there before, Josh. And Flash Road, I believe there's some, Ward Road. I think it's just an overkill. And I understand people want to park and go to the beach, but, you know, it's too much. And I've gone down Spring Road on coming home on a Sunday on a hot Sunday afternoon. There is no way you're going to get a fire truck down there, or an ambulance. It's just not going to happen. And that's their route, really. I mean, as a kid, I can always remember them going down Spring Road to go to Little Nahant or to go anywhere. They would always go down that way, so.
Yeah,
Is it both
certainly we
sides?
can't have a situation where an emergency vehicle can't get through, so maybe we need to study where we can allow it and where we can, or have Chief Dwyer chime in or something, or,
I was going to suggest that. We need to have a meeting with the police chief, have him review all these roads.
Yeah.
Because I agree with Jen, people are parking, but the problem is, on Ward Road, they park on the side. Usually they've got 2 or 3 children, and they're towing them on that road with their cart across, to the Coast Guard beach. It's like, and then the parking lot's usually full, so they park there. I mean, it's always happened, and I haven't heard many complaints the first time on Ward Road. Spring Road, there should be parking only one side, only. They can't park on both sides. They can't park on both sides. And there should be resident parking further down, away from some of those houses. You can put a few in, but, it's usually the lowlands is full. And the problem is the families with kids, they gotta drive to the beach because they gotta get out, the cart and the toys, and, the whole. Problem is, there's other people from out of town parking down there, which we should, have Dwyer make sure they're tagged and towed. Very simple.
Well, I think he should look at the parking tickets
But I
too.
mean, we should look at this, if it's a problem, around, I agree with you, on the landscapers and the construction people. Valley Road, that was jammed. You couldn't get down Valley Road. I was unbelievable when I came out that one morning, a couple mornings. I asked them to move their trucks on the other side, either one way or the other. And so we gotta check on that, have the cruisers check that, when the contractor's out, they need to park on one side. They can't, leave these trucks. 'Cause you couldn't get a fire truck down that Valley Road. And especially Emerald is, you can't, it's unbelievable down Emerald. You can only park on one side, totally. It's always been that way. On the right side going inbound. You can't, and the signs there, no parking on this side, But we'll do what we can, and before we get off the subject, Jen, I just want to thank you. Every year you're getting these, selling the T-shirts, and you do a fantastic job. You raise all the money for the fireworks, and I hope everyone buys a T-shirt or make a donation. I mean, we got a few townspeople that need to step up sometimes,
Everybody does their share.
No, but you do a great job, and on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the townspeople, thank you. Because without you, we wouldn't have fireworks. Billy, I saw you get up,
Bill Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. I just want to mention, and you probably know about it, Northeastern University has resubmitted an ENF, an environmental notification form, this week. Last year they did, and they didn't do a good job of communicating, but some people found out about it, went up to the meeting, pointed out some of the issues that had to do with the environment, particularly with warm water coming back into the bay, and also macerating a whole lot of lobsters. And they withdrew their application after receiving 82 letters from Nahant people. This year, they're resubmitted. They say they've done some engineering. I've looked at the ENF. There's 420 pages. There's still some major issues that people, Nahanters, are concerned about, fishermen, and a whole bunch. Plus, they're also, it's not just the seawater system this year, it's their 61,000 square foot building that's coming in there. We've been notified that Monday evening at 6 o'clock, they're going to offer a consultation and a site visit at Northeastern University. I just want to let people know, and maybe we could ask Roz to post it so the townspeople could see firsthand what Northeastern is planning. And it's going to, again, Monday evening, the 24th, up at Northeastern. The public is invited. Northeastern will have their engineers and science people there to tell about what they're doing, and it is time for anybody to talk about it and question some of their environmental inputs.
Billy, just to let you know, the town administrator advised me he's going to offer the state agency that's coming in on Monday the use of the town hall, and we'll set the town hall. We have that meeting here, okay, at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just before,
We got to make sure that the state agency's okay
Well,
with that.
we'd like the townspeople to get up there and see what the NEPA people are talking about.
I just don't want to, I don't want there to be any confusion. As of right now, the meeting is up at Northeastern.
Right.
Obviously, the room that they have there only holds 100 people, expecting that there'll be more than 100 people going. Wanted to check with you before offering them to have it here. I haven't even spoken with the other two selectmen yet, so I don't want residents to be confused about where to go. If the location of it changes, we will make sure that we put that out there for people to know.
Well, some of us are concerned that we want to walk the site with them and see actually what they're doing with maps, etc. And being firsthand, walking the turf up there might be important to do that.
It wouldn't eliminate that. It wouldn't eliminate that portion of the site visit. It would just be once you go inside. Instead of doing it in a room that only fits 100 people, maybe we could do it here. There's a lot of logistics I have to
So
check.
at 6 o'clock, it's still on up there, at least to do the site visit?
I literally just asked. I just asked if they would, if it was okay with the board. I haven't checked logistics yet. I don't want people to be confused.
Yeah, well, I hope a
Changes
lot
on
of townspeople come out. It's important to see what they're really up to. Thanks.
Billy, is the board, you have questions of the town?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's value, as Billy said, to walk on the site, and if, they don't have the capacity to handle the audience, it certainly makes sense to come up here afterward, I think, so that everybody has a chance to listen and chime in, so.
I'm looking at the weather. Why can't they have it up there? I think they should have it up there. I really do. I think that it's important that people walk around and see what, do the site. I went to the last one, and there was a site visit. Why can't they have it outside? The weather's supposed to be nice. I mean, if need be.
Again,
I mean, in here, you can barely hear, and when it gets overcrowded, it becomes difficult. That's just my opinion. I mean, you can do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, if the weather's nice, it's, you know, you get the best of both worlds, right? You get to walk the site.
It's Monday night,
Why don't we
right?
do this? Why don't we leave
Monday
it to
night,
you and meet with the agency and let them go through, everyone have the walkthrough, and then give them the option of having up here. We can set it up for it, you know.
Is it Monday night? Monday night's supposed to be sunny. I'm looking at the weather right now, so.
again, it wouldn't be to eliminate the site walk or site visit of the site. I think that would still happen. I believe following the site walk, the intent is to go inside the bunker and have a indoor meeting, discussion.
Yeah.
And, you know, it only fits 100 people. There's probably going to be more than 100 people, so that was my thought. But again, it's premature, in my opinion, to be talking about it publicly because I don't want people to be confused as to where it's going to be. I still need to figure out logistics about here. There's a lot of details. Happy to hear that you guys are open to it. I still don't, you know, there's a lot of people to talk to get that organized.
Excuse me. He was first. No, you come up, you sit down. No, you can't, no. He can wait.
That's a comfortable seat. Christian Bauda, 3 Swallow Cave Road. I know it's on the agenda later on to give a Northeastern University update. The 2 specific questions I would have for you. I know there's been some talk of a cash offer, payment in lieu of taxes to the town. I'd like to know specifically what details go in that. Is that all cash? Is it payment in kind? And also any update on meetings you've had with Northeastern between now and the last Board of Selectmen meeting. Thank you.
Just to give you the answer, the town administrator will be coming up under his report, and he'll tell you all about the latest offer that Northeastern's made to us, and et cetera. I've got you, we're gonna, on the signs, I agree, I happen to agree with you. And I'm gonna ask the board, actually town council, the action we can take it because it's getting out of hand. Enough with the signs. In fact, I'd like to see all signs taken down. You know, very simple. Now,
Jeff Mussman, 15 Tri-Mountain Road. Just following up on the ENF. ENF was in the state environmental monitor on June 10th. There's a 20-day comment period, so I'd encourage anyone in town that had thoughts or concerns about the project that they would consider submitting comments. Additionally, I know that there is an opportunity to request an extension. I have been talking to the town administrator on that subject, and I simply want to ask whether, in fact, an extension has been requested.
I have a letter
Right.
with me here tonight for the board to make that vote, and we've discussed it. They would like to also ask for that request, so they'll be signing the letter today, and it'll be sent out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
A 30-day request.
Have you spoken to?
I've given Northeastern a heads up that we were making that request.
Okay.
And MIPA, and Aaron Flaherty, the analyst from MIPA.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And just so folks know, Northeastern decides whether to grant the extension on the comment period, not MIPA. So that's why, gave them a heads up that we were asking it. MIPA defers that decision to them.
Hold on.
Hi, Alice Court, 7 Valley Road.
Hold on, Alice, hold month.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You know, this is directed toward you. I think you need to apologize to the FinCon for your remarks you made at town meeting. And the remarks that you made, we had two individuals resign from the FinCon. And that Finance Committee is made up of a mix of individuals from various committees who all volunteered. And your remarks hurt them and criticized them. It was above and beyond. And I really didn't appreciate it as a member of the Board of Selectmen. And as the chairman, I said in the beginning when I asked, you know, the people in the town to stop all the negativity directed to individuals, especially committees and boards that are all volunteers. They volunteer, they don't get paid, and for that criticism, it was very, very, I'll be honest with you, I was just flabbergasted by the time when you finished. I reviewed the tapes at the town meeting, and I saw them, and it just got me really upset. And I think you need to go down and talk to Brendan Waugh, the chairman of the Finance Committee, and write him a letter and apologize to them. I'll be honest with you. And I would prefer you not taking the mic tonight or the forum or anything else until that is done.
I can ask excuse me. Alice Court, 7 Valley Road. Do I need to ask the lawyer if I'm prohibited from speaking at Citizens Forum in response to that I'm not allowed to speak here again unless I write a letter as documented by you of what I should say to Mr. Walsh? I'm happy to speak to Mr. Walsh about what my comments were, and I think that might be a very worthwhile discussion to have with him about why I made those comments. If they were offensive, this is the kind of apology where I certainly feel like I can apologize if people were offended by them, but I think there was validity in the nature of my criticism of the way that particular comment was made. I am happy to speak to Mr. Brendan Walsh and would look forward to it, actually.
Brendan Ward.
Brendan Ward, I'm terribly sorry.
Okay.
All
right.
So I will contact him and try to arrange a meeting, and I don't know, I'm not on Facebook, I don't know about the resignations, I only knew about one that had to do with the person who wrote the comment, but I don't know the nature behind that.
Well, I appreciate your sincerity, so go ahead and you can have the mic tonight.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments to make, but one of them has to do with the money. And so since you haven't officially discussed the money offer by Northeastern, I wonder if when you do that, we citizens of Nahant will be able to comment and give you feedback about it. I've only heard unofficially of what the offer is, so it seems a little premature to comment on that until I hear officially what it is.
You were all told.
No.
Everybody was told.
Well, no, what I heard was that you put it on your Facebook page, and I'm not on Facebook.
No, I didn't.
Okay, well then I don't know. All I
I
heard...
think all of Keeping Nahant Wild and the Preservation Trust knew exactly what we were going to get. It was leaked out.
But I'm not...
Why don't we answer her question?
We can answer a question. The original offer they gave us for mitigation was $500,000. The new offer is $6 million. And the town administrator will walk through you with what that offer means, because there was other things in that offer that they submitted, and what they're gonna do and not do, especially in the town of Nahant. But when he comes up under his business, he'll explain all that.
So I'll wait until he explains, because one of the comments I have has to do with my experience being married to my husband and his being the director of a research center and what long-term arrangements often look like. So until I hear what it is, they may not be entirely appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't going to comment on the letter about the signs until you spoke, and so I have to say I got a letter. I did not move my sign. And my thoughts are a couple of things. One, I know, being married to a man who's in a prominent position, that I feel affiliated with those organizations. So you may not feel that way, but I hear that message with that in that context. I feel like the signs are they are uncomfortable, and it is a shame that that many of us feel as though we need to put those signs up throughout our neighborhood to give a message that we are unhappy with the state of affairs on Nahant. And it brought to mind a number of uncomfortable moments in our history, where you might think this is extreme, but, it's like the suffragette movement, where men would say, well, we know you want the vote, but, why don't you go back to the kitchen now, because we get it and we'll decide later. We're facing something where if people don't see how we feel now, we may wind up with something that can't be removed later on, a big building up on the top of East Point. And the signs are obviously not just for the citizens of Nahant, it's for the people who are coming from these other agencies to understand how deeply and profoundly we love the natural resource that we have out at East Point, and that that might all be taken away from us. And so, I understand that it's uncomfortable, and I wish that I'm trying to find the comment about that you made about how property values are going down, and that it's just it's not our pretty little town anymore. And that may be true. My family's been here 50 years, so I certainly understand and know how Nahant looks, and it's hard to have all those signs up there. But I'm really afraid of what happens if the message doesn't continue to be spoken. So as long as we have the constitutional right to do so, you would argue that we don't, but apparently there's some question. I would say let us keep that constitutional right to make our feelings known. Thanks.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
Jeff Thomas, 16 Little Nahant Road.
Wait a minute. Get to the mic.
Jeff Thomas, 16 Little Nahant Road. I've listened to everything that was said here and found some of it to be eye-opening. And somebody did give me a sign, which I put up in my backyard a couple of days ago, that says, "Nahant is not for sale," which I thought was intuitively obvious, but after hearing everything I've heard here tonight so far, I've decided I'm going to make a change. I'm going to cut the word "not" out of the sign. Thank you.
Okay. Next, someone else?
Hi, Linda Mason for Hillcrest Avenue, and I would like to say that my family love the signs. We want more signs, and I agree with what has been said about this is when we can voice our opinion. The signs are temporary. When they put that building up there, it's over. It's over. So I'm all for the signs, and I want you to know it.
Christian Bowder, 3 Swallow Cave Road again. The reference to depreciated property values, I can tell you, from where I sit, the moment that that building permit is approved, my first call is going to be to the assessor's office to have my property reassessed, because I know the value of my property is less. And that's forever. The signs are temporary. That building is forever. And the hit to the assessments of properties all over Nahant, big properties that pay a lot of tax, that's permanent.
Yes.
Cora Long, 263 Nahant Road. Just like Christian said, the signs are temporary. The building is permanent. I totally agree, but Richie, I am totally shocked the fact that you don't like these signs. You told everybody you were with us. You're against Northeastern, you don't want the building. I'm surprised that I don't have the other partner that showed up in the PJs after hearing this come to town tonight and express this. Do you not like the signs, Richie? What's going on? Did they give you a number that you're willing to sell out for?
No.
Okay.
The problem, the signs are starting to go overboard.
It's our voice.
Well, overboard, these big red signs with a muskie with a bird in his mouth and things like that. That's kind of like, it's like over the top. The small signs, I have no problem with it.
Okay, so...
Nahant's not for sale, that is going to be a vote. You're going to have a chance to vote on that. Once you hear the town administrator's thing, we're going to have a special town meeting to have people vote. I mean, the board's not going to make that decision. I mean, it's going to be the taxpayer. It's going to be the townspeople. I know, listen, that first petition and all the meeting since, we had 1,700 people on a signature. The most I received, well, not me, but the town's received against that property of building the $55,000 or $60,000 square foot building, okay? The traffic, I've been, against it, okay, from day one, and I haven't changed.
Okay, so you don't have a price?
No, I'm sorry?
You don't have a price to sell Nahant?
I'm just telling you, we received a price, okay?
Right.
It was 2 prices, and the town manager will go through that. But we're not gonna, if that has to come down to a vote, it's gonna be a special town meeting. You're gonna have options to vote on. It'll probably be a ballot question, okay?
So the majority of the people that elected you said
Right.
the town is not for sale. There is no price.
That's correct.
However, you're going to say, look, let's see if we can negotiate. There is a price. Even though the town people said there is no price?
Well, no. You are gonna come to a meeting and you're gonna decide if we get that far.
Okay. I still didn't get my answer.
It's not the Board of Selectmen gonna make a decision. It's the townspeople gonna make the decision. These decisions for Northeastern, this is it's like a supersized Walmart going in there. And the people in the town, okay, which I represent, are against it. And I've been against it from day one.
Okay, great.
I'm just, as the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I'm explaining what's coming up and trying to keep you people aware of what the meetings we're having, not having, and the office. That's all we're doing.
Okay, so...
We haven't voted on anything. We haven't accepted anything. This thing about Nahant's not for sale, that's going to be up to the taxpayer. They're going to come and vote. That's what it's going to eventually come down.
So the signs, why should people take down the signs? It's our voice.
Again, the small signs, it doesn't bother me. But when you get a sign the size of a billboard, I mean, it's like, it's like very, especially the one, I don't appreciate the one with the muskie with the bird in his mouth.
So if there's 50 people lined from Northeastern down to, what's that, the street on the corner of 40 Steps, with signs, Cliff Street, holding signs, you don't have a problem with that every day? So if 50 people show up every day holding signs, is there going to be a problem with that?
They have protested with signs.
Yeah, my wife stood out there. I have no problem with that. Who said I had a problem with that? I had no problem with that.
Okay, but you...
Bonnie went out there with the, I
To
think...
change the ordinance to take down the signs, no?
No, wait a minute.
It's always been an ordinance to change. The signs are only supposed to be up for a certain time. She's a lawyer.
We've never enforced them.
This young lady's a lawyer, okay? And some people don't want them. I can tell you that.
I understand that.
And some people do want them, and that's fine, okay? So we don't need to attack each other about the signs. The signs, I think, are a bit overkill, myself, okay?
I just wanted to
All
verify
right.
where Richie's stance was on this.
And personally, I can tell you right now, it's, anybody can be against Northeastern. You can have your own say in it. But you know something? At the end of the day, we don't make that decision, Cora. It's the building inspector, it's the planning board, the Conservation Commission, and I'm not sure, it starts with the building inspector. They're the ones that are going to issue the permits, not the Board of Selectmen. We don't have any say in it. Okay? So we don't need to attack each other. The signs are a bit of an overkill. I will say that. All right?
I disagree.
If I can,
A temporary sign over a permanent building, I disagree.
if I can, just to, what's being requested of the town is to look at the zoning ordinance, which is voted on by the town, of if these signs are breaking the zoning ordinance. It's not about how you feel about the signs or not. If a resident is coming to the town and asking for the town to enforce zoning ordinance that the town voted to adopt, it's not up to the board to decide whether or not to enforce that zoning ordinance.
Right.
It's determined by town government. So I understand it's a people are passionate, and I understand that, the signs represent your voice. And, I think at the end of the day, the question is whether the zoning ordinance allows it or not. And it's not up to the Board of Selectmen to decide whether or not to enforce that ordinance. It's a town-voted law. So
It was voted in a town meeting.
so I'm not trying to, I understand it, I understand the emotion behind it, but we have to I think the request is to take a look at the zoning ordinance and determine whether or not the signs are allowed to be there or not. It's not an opinion, it's whether the zoning ordinance allows it or not. And that's what we'll ask our attorney to look at.
And I just want to clarify one thing. I don't think that you realize that this is not a town meeting vote to let Northeastern build there or not. It's got nothing to do with town meeting. It has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the building department, whether they, through council, have the right to build there. And, the fact, I think it's getting a little bit out of control, thinking that we can stop them. We can't stop them. We have no say in it. It's the building inspector. He's got to go by the law. And there's lawyers that will handle that. Am I right?
You can't say whether or not, you can't determine right now whether or not a permit would be approved or denied.
Right, that's
No
right.
application has been submitted. It depends on the details of that application and how it fits within.
So let them
the
come
law.
through. Let them come through with their permits, and then that's when people should really, that's when we look at it. Or that's when the building inspector looks at it. It's up to him.
But just to clarify, Richie, your comment that the citizens of the town are going to be able to come and vote on whether they do or don't want, or we should or should not issue a building permit, that's not the process. It's the
That's right.
process that you just described, Enzo. I wish it were, but it isn't. So just to understand that it's not like you're going to be able to come up here and vote whether to give Northeastern a permit or not.
Okay to go ahead? I'm Marilyn Mahoney. I live at 179 Willow Road. Richie, over the top, and Enzo, overkill. That's what Northeastern is guilty of, what they're trying to do to this community. I'm really sorry, but 1 square mile community, we are the smallest in the state of Massachusetts. Out of 351 cities and towns, we are the smallest.
That's right.
I'm not against their education. I'm not against research. Their vision is too big for this community. They need to look elsewhere. I'm encouraging all the Nahant citizens to look, and I want to thank Bobby Joe, who I went into the town hall yesterday, and the ENF that was posted on the Nahant website was the incorrect one. It was only 200 some odd pages. The full ENF is over 400 pages. I encourage everyone in this community, whether you're here tonight or at home, to look at that ENF. There's going to be fracking for geothermal heating up at Northeastern. The building is over 60,000 square feet. There's over 130 cars that they're going to be bringing. They want parking spots up there. The traffic that's going to come into this community is going to be staggering. And Richie, I hate to say it to you and to Calantha Sears, who I love, once this construction project begins, you will no longer have handicap access to get up to our park at the top. This is a pretty sad, very sad. We have tried as a community. We've gone in with signatures. Do you know what happened? I was there that day. We went up the elevator. We were stopped at the door once we got out that elevator. The president never got up, never welcomed anyone from Nahant. There was a busload of us that went in. We had to stand in the hallway and pass over our petition. Now, if you call that being a good neighbor, I certainly don't. And Angela, I'm sorry. I have a sign, and I'm proud to have it. It's my voice against what this university is trying to do to our precious town. And once we lose it, I want my children and grandchildren, and all of you should want that as well, to enjoy this community as you have enjoyed it. It will never, ever be the same. You're complaining about signs? The people that live there, I have flowing pipes on the beach. They're swimming in warmed up lab water. Come on, folks. In this ENF, you've got to look at it. You've got to read it and listen, and listen to the people that have done some work around what's in that ENF and the impact it's going to have on all of us. In unity, there is strength. Northeastern is popping the cork to the champagne bottle if we don't work together. We have to unify, have a voice, and stand up to preserve our community.
Hi, Debbie Vanderslice, 368 Nahant Road. I brought my sign with me for visual effect. What I want to say is, and Marilyn has just said a lot of this, so I don't want to take up too much time, but as we know, if Northeastern is allowed to go ahead with this 61,000 square foot expansion, the fabric of our community is going to change. Not only will there be more traffic, noise pollution, light pollution, but it'll just be untenable to even drive in and out of town. With the extra traffic, this is going to be a global sustainability institute. Don't be fooled. It's not just about 130 extra students. It's about bringing people in, bringing in government officials, getting money, which is all great. I support money and I support science. But what I really came to say is that this whole brouhaha over the signs, it makes me think of an expression, and that is, the house is on fire, and all you're worried about is the drapes.
Did you have a... No,
Be short.
No. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to give you one
Sorry,
more
Christian Bowder, 3 Swallow Cave Road. Richie, I just want to go back to your point about having a townwide vote. I think it's a great idea, and I understand it's not legally binding and that the building inspector is the one that decides to issue the permit. However, A townwide vote would give the citizens a voice to say publicly how we feel. And that might be the trigger that we need to actually put up a fight for the town to finally decide, you know what? We don't actually want this. The citizens have spoken. We're going to put up a fight. And guess what? We're going to get the money to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to shut anybody off? Anyone else? Okay, we all, open forum is closed. Citizens forum. On the new business, the approval of the new Vintage Art Society Victorian Ball.
Okay, I'll move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for the Victorian Ball hosted by New England Vintage Arts Society on August 10th, 2019, from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Town
Is
Hall.
the motion seconded?
Seconded.
Motion seconded. Discussion.
I do have a discussion that's a little bit off topic.
Okay.
I have no problem with this. We approved a 5K road race, and I got some complaints about it, that people were unruly, the runners were unruly. We need to look at that when we start having these races in the Nahant, okay?
Well, if you found out the group that was holding the road race, can you find out if you have a complaint?
Yeah.
Then we'll make sure that we don't approve it next year.
Yeah, okay,
Very
that's
simple.
fine.
I mean, and advise them as such.
All right.
Your runners were unruly, and they're not going to be allowed in the Nahant to run again. They can stay on the DCR territory.
right.
Very simple. I mean, people, they're unruly, and, they're doing things they're not supposed to be doing. Absolutely. Just ban them from the Nahant. The Board of Selectmen can do that. Just, you find out, the race, and
Yeah, you should know
make
that,
a
right.
motion of it, Enzo, for next year.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. Next.
No, vote on it.
Oh, yeah. Any other further decision?
No, so that was a comment that the runners were
I
unruly?
just took it up because I'll forget.
Yes.
Well, you should, we should, let's get rid of the
Right.
first vote here, okay? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now, anything else you want to say about that road
Nope.
race? Okay. Next is, Josh, we got the employment agreement between the town of Nahant and our new outstanding superintendent of public works,
Yeah.
Zachary Taylor. I gotta say, since he's been on the job, because his first day on the job, it was the sewer breakdown in the Linway. It was unbelievable. But just his running skills and management skills, I've noticed it's just tremendous. He's doing a great job. I'll entertain a motion. Josh, yes, Josh, you have to make the motion to approve his contract.
Right. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the DPW Superintendent Employee Agreement.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second. Further discussion.
I would agree. He's, a couple of things I've asked him to do, they were done before I could even get off the telephone. He's very, very good. Thank God I picked him. No, it was actually Tony's pick, and you know something? You did a great job, Tony. He's perfect. He's really perfect, and people are very happy with him, and he's a working superintendent, which is good, because we have a small crew anyway, so, and he was a summer crew, just like yourself.
Yeah, I would also follow that up with, commending the DPW, the crew down there, and again, Tim Lowe, who stepped up and filled the spot in an interim position, and they have welcomed Zach and, been helping him right along. So the whole department, should be commended for the work they've been doing so far.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Next, Enzo, the vote for on the Board of Selectmen for the certificates for the bond council in connection with the town bonds, anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes.
Okay, I move the Board of Selectmen adopt the votes as written and the vote certificate provided by the Bonds Council in connection with the town's bond anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes, each dated July 12th, 2019, and further, that the text of such votes for incorporated into the minutes of this meeting.
Motion, is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion's been second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say...
Sorry,
Oh,
you want to give a very quick overview of what this is, just for the folks?
They're right here, the bonds.
Yeah, just
Anticipation
just
attack,
so
okay.
anybody listening knows what we're...
Sure, it's
voting
an annual process that the town takes on prior to the upcoming fiscal year. So the RANs are revenue anticipatory notes. So, we collect taxes twice a year. However, that revenue needs to be, we spend a lot of that early in the season. So essentially it's a loan basically that allows us to float throughout the fiscal year, and then we pay it back with those taxes, property taxes that we get, each payment, each half payment of the year. And bond anticipatory notes. So those are for capital improvements that were, based on the borrowings that were approved at town meeting, this town meeting, and previous to that.
Do you want to sign them now, Richie?
No, we can sign them after the meeting. Let's just get through the meeting.
That's fine, because I'll tell, Peggy has to come up and
Yeah,
do that.
no, I
So
understand.
I'll text her later then.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Next is,
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the FY20 fees as presented.
motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Discussion.
If I might, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Tony. These are the annual fees?
Right, so, the fee schedule, this fee schedule is the same as it was last year. We have to make sure that this is adopted prior to the July 1st, new fiscal year. The only change here is the sewer rates. We saw a significant increase in the rates, because of increases from Lynn Water and Sewer. Saugus, Swampscott, and Lynn also are experiencing these rates. We've reached out to Lynn Water, Sewer, Saugus, and Swampscott, and Lynn to set up a meeting to discuss, some of the causes of this rate increase. So hope to provide that explanation to you once we have that information. But essentially, this fee structure is the same as it was last year. Finance Committee has indicated that they would like to take a look at our fee structure over the last 5 years, what rates have been increased by how much, how do they compare to other communities, and put together an analysis and potential proposal for changing the rates, whether they be increasing, decreasing, eliminating new rate, or adding new rates. That would come later in the year. But for now, for the process, we want to make sure we get these done. Secondly, on the agenda here is the FY20 appointments for review and vote. In the past, the board has appointed each year, the board has appointed all town employees for 1-year terms and done it every single year. And other than from our preliminary research, the treasurer-collector in the town charter states that the treasurer-collector runs for a 1-year term. But other than that, all of our employees aren't on a 1-year term. So it's a lot of unnecessary work and time put into a process that I think, I'm not sure why it was done for so long. So we're still in the process of evaluating the charter and making sure that we get that done when it's necessary. The treasurer collector was appointed for just a few months ago, if you recall, so he's covered anyways. And the other piece of it is appointments of board members. So we're going through a process right now of trying to find out how many members of different committees, their terms are coming up, if they're still members, if they're active members, if those committees are still active, things of that nature. We weren't prepared to vote on that tonight, so that's coming soon.
Well, you should also meet with the town moderator and go through his list so that he's aware, because some of the committees he appoints, you know, et cetera, so. Okay.
And, thanks for looking for opportunities to streamline things and also going through those committees and boards, because it's certainly something that needs attention. So thanks for that, Tony.
And the other thing I'd suggest to you, Tony, too, is if we're missing certain members off certain boards, if we could advertise them on the screen or anything, that people might be able to apply for those positions.
That's why
I'd like to appoint.
That's why I think it's important that we keep that the same, the different boards that we appoint every year you're gonna have an appointment. Every 3 years, some of them are 3-year appointments, some of them are 5-year. The employees are different. That can be, I know Peggy goes to the fire station and the police station and swears them in every year. Didn't the Modernization Act take care of that? Shouldn't that have been part of it?
It's not a state rule, it's not a state law.
It's in our charter.
It was, even the charter doesn't say it. It seems to me it was a practice of the town, just a traditional practice of the town to do it for every single employee every year.
We've done it for the last 35 years.
And it's unnecessary.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
And we, like, the police are appointed on a 1-year term.
Which they aren't.
The only one who has a contract is the chief. The firemen,
But technically, they aren't, the
they're not-
police
we
are
know
on
that.
a 3-year union contract, so.
oh, I understand.
And even still, even without a active union contract, it's not like they lose their job at the end of that contract. So it's an odd practice that the town, I don't know why we were doing it for so many years.
Let's discuss this, okay?
Right. We need a charter committee. That's what we need.
All right. Any other discussion on the fees? Josh?
Nope.
Enzo?
No.
All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Play it as it lies, the golf course, we've got an amendment to the management agreement.
Right, so the management of Play It As It Lies changed a few months ago. It was formerly John Moore and Anthony Dominicus. They have since split ways, parted ways on that partnership.
Right.
However, the contract was never amended. And in order for John Moore to update his liquor license, this needs to be updated as well. So, council put together this amendment. Anthony's, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. I forwarded a draft of the amendment to the lease to Tony a few days ago. Since then, there's been more discussions between the attorneys for John and then for Anthony. And there were some concerns expressed. We're down to one line and really one date that we're still trying to get straight. And it has to do with the separation of Anthony and Tony, Anthony and John. It seems as though that may have actually occurred in January 2018, or it was only solidified in September 2018. So there's some confusion over that. Once we get through that, then we'll be good to go in terms of everyone agreeing to this amendment. And as Tony mentioned, all it's doing is really cleaning up some documents here in Town Hall, because as it stands now, the DBA filed with the town clerk has Anthony's name on it, and he's not doing any business there. But more importantly, really, it's for the liquor license because of the presumed liability that might come out of it if something dramatic happens. So it's a way of just cleaning up town hall records and also giving Anthony some level of comfort. So the copies you have in front of you now are not the most recent. I have the most recent version, which were just updated a few hours ago, so I didn't have time to send it to Tony, so I can hand these around. They're not really prepared for signatures tonight because we need to resolve this one issue, but this is pretty much what you're going to see at the end of the day. All right, so I will just...
So the amendment, so you may be changing some of the whereas terminology?
No, we had just minor changes, just dates. The most significant change from what you have already is the paragraph right above the signature section, and it really just states that this amendment won't foist any personal liability on John Moore. It never would anyway, but his attorney just wanted to get that in there just to make it clear. He was a bit concerned about just having that happen. Again, it's a bit overkill, but it doesn't affect the town in any way. So if it makes them happy and puts them in a position to sign, then we're okay with it.
But the amendment is pursuant to section 5.8, subsection 4 of the agreement. The agreement is amended as follows. On page 11 of the agreement, the places where Anthony D. Dominicus's name is signed/written on 2 occasions shall be stricken and replaced with the signed written name John Moore. So it doesn't change any details of the lease agreement or anything in that. It just formalizes Anthony coming off of the lease.
There's no substantive change at all.
Make the motion.
Can I?
Okay, we all,
So-
what, hold on.
I just wanted to ask you, how are they allowed to do that?
Do what?
Just, they both signed a lease with the town of Nahant.
Well, they signed it as directors of a corporation. Well, Anthony's no longer a director, so his name is really superfluous. But it's not so much the name in the contract, and it's important to understand this, the contract is not being substantively changed at all. It's just a formality, really. The more important thing is just getting the town hall records straight, so that it does not, they don't falsely show that Anthony is conducting business as the corporation. And it's just simply an amendment to a contract. That's all it is.
I mean, the only problem I have with that is, I mean, when we signed their agreement back
2016.
4 years ago,
Yeah.
they would have been both on the hook. Now, you know, for anything that happened, and now there's only going to be one.
No, that's not true. It doesn't change any of that. Who would have been responsible would have been the corporation, because they're signing as directors, in this case, the 2 directors, and I think Anthony was the treasurer, whereas John was the president and whatnot. So it doesn't change the liability. The liability is still the same. It's still the corporation, and their insurance and all that.
All right, I'm just trying to protect the town. That's
The
all.
town it's in as good protection as it was 2 months ago in terms of this contract. It doesn't change a thing.
Okay.
Okay,
So should the board vote on this tonight?
Not yet. I'd rather get this final portion finalized, but the benefit of this is you guys have it now in front of you, so you see it, so when you see it again, probably next meeting, it won't be any discussion really about it unless you guys have more concerns.
well, we're not gonna meet the third week in July.
That's fine.
Is
There's
that
no
gonna-
big rush.
Is that fine?
That's fine. Liquor licenses don't come out until I think early next year or something like that.
All right.
And the DBA can be adjusted. It's not a huge issue at the moment.
All gonna pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the fee
Northeastern.
schedule we voted, right?
Northeastern.
It's,
Town administrator's report.
So, some of our, through the Citizens Forum, some of it's already been spoken about. Northeastern did file their ENF on June 10th, and there's a 20-day comment period, so comments are due June 30th. Then the MIPA office reviews those comments for 10 days and determines whether to issue a certificate or ask for more information by July 10th. The town is requesting an extension to that period, to that comment period for an additional 30 days. Again, it's Northeastern's decision to extend that. The town also requested a site visit for this, and it's been scheduled for Monday night at Northeastern University for 6 o'clock. Again, there may be new information coming on that, on location, but as of right now, it's going to be at Northeastern. Comments can be submitted to the MIPA office or Secretary Kathleen Theoharides at Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, 100 Cambridge Street, Suite 900, Boston, Mass. 02114. And the MIPA analyst is Aaron Flaherty. The town has asked KP Law, Amy Quessel, the attorney that actually helped the town review the wetlands bylaw and the regulations, to assist the town in reviewing Northeastern's ENF and to help us write our comments that we're going to be submitting. Sorry, I lost my place here. And yes, we actually experienced a similar issue with the ENF and the different pages. The 400-page ENF is linked to our website, and it's also been posted on Facebook as well, or it should be at least up to date on the website now. I know we initiated the process today. So through this process, we have been raising concerns to Northeastern about what they're proposing and what the impacts are going to be to the community, and they have offered the town, through the form of mitigation, monetary and non-monetary, to help with those impacts. And the original, just to recap, the original offer to the town was a total of $1 million, $500,000 up front, with $50,000 a year for 10 years on top of that. Additionally, landscape mitigation at the property by removing invasive species, adding new plantings, installing walking and hiking trails, continuing their 2-half tuition scholarships for Nahant full-time students at Northeastern. Their research agenda that's focused on climate change and sea level rise would be geared towards specific issues that are affecting Nahant, and they would create a program to assist Nahant with those issues. They would continue their $25,000 donation to the Johnson Elementary School, summer jobs to Nahant High School students, free educational programs at the Marine Science Center for residents, a lobster hatchery, satellite parking and shuttle service, no further expansion except work potentially needed at the existing Edwards building, commitment to purchase no other property or use any other property in Nahant, no student residential facilities, no commercial activity. And we've also already expressed to them, that wasn't on that original offer, some type of commitment to continuing to keep Canoe Beach public access to Canoe Beach, inspecting and repairing any issues with their sewer main, and a few other things I believe we've reached out to them about as well. And much of that will follow up with the comments that we finalize for the ENF comment period. All of that is still on the table, except the things that have changed is they came back to the town and increased that original $1 million monetary piece up to about $4.85 million, and that was $1.5 million up front, and then about a little bit over $115,000 a year for 29 years. And now, most recently, they've increased that total amount to $6 million, still $1.5 million up front, and then a little bit over $115,000 a year for 39 years after the initial upfront cost. So again, as the chairman mentioned earlier, this is an effort to be transparent with the town about what Northeastern has offered to the town in the form of mitigation to the impacts that have been raised as concerns with their building. And there's been no decision one way or the other. It's just this is what Northeastern has offered the town at this point.
Those are verbal offers, yes?
I've received them in the form of a draft term sheet, which many of the details would be later more specifically formalized, like what type of plantings. You know, I think residents had concerns about, you know, that Northeastern says they're going to put trees to help shield the building. Residents had raised a concern about, you know, infant trees that aren't going to help for many years. So obviously that's something that we would look into, like what size trees, where they're going to be located. So specifics on that level, at that scale, wouldn't be in this term sheet. That comes later in a memorandum of understanding if we get to that point. But yeah, so I've received them in a draft term sheet, written document.
So that's spread over 40 years.
I didn't hear you, Josh, I'm sorry.
I said, so that monetary offer is spread over 40 years, so $1.5 million for
Yes, except I guess
compensation for the damages to the roads and whatever other, and then $115,000 for the next 39 years.
how that, yeah, that $6 million is broken up over 40 years, $1.5 million up front, and then a little bit over $115,000 a year for 39 years. The $25,000 donation to Johnson School and the other non-monetary benefits are they're written up as so long as Northeastern operates on the property, basically.
Yeah. All right, so it works out to $149,000, on average, $149,625 a year over that 40 years. Just so everybody knows that is what their average annual contribution would be.
Can I ask a question?
No, not right now. Hang on. I'll get to you. Questions of the board?
Nope. I mean, it's just,
I guess it's also important to remember that 40 years, so this payment starts right now, or when was this $1.5 million come?
yeah, two, I would think.
I think the way that the term sheet was written was it would be within 60 days of their occupancy permit.
So they get that after the building is done. Mm-hmm. So a couple of years from now or something like that. So I think, you know, our annual budget right now is about $13 million. If it goes up 2.5% a year, 40 years from now, it's going to be about $30 million. So that $115,000 a year on that budget works out to about 0.3% of our annual budget at that time. So I'm just crunching some numbers for you.
I mean, it's pretty hard to say what the town's budget's going to be in 40 years, but we are restricted our revenue is restricted by 2.5% through Prop 2.5 on an annual basis. However, you know, sometimes our budget has gone higher than that. Mm-hmm. You know, 2 years ago, our budget increased about 10%. This past year, it only increased 1.43 or something.
Yeah, so I conservatively used 2.5% to look at what it means 40 years from now.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Enzo, you have any questions?
Nope.
Jeff, go ahead.
Tony, First question is, are you intending to put the draft MOU online, make it available for us to see?
The draft term sheet, you mean?
Or whatever, right?
I haven't discussed that with the board yet. I think it's been a moving target, so I'd have to think about it. Happy, to have that conversation, but just want to make sure that it's not confusing, I guess, that it's changed 3 times in the past 2 weeks, so.
So, term sheet suggests that they're making an offer. What is it that they expect us in return to do?
It's the way that it was, I don't have it, I don't know exactly what it specifically says in the term sheet, but the way it's been presented to the town is that this is to combat the impacts that the project is going to have, the negative impacts the project's going to have, the construction of which is going to have on the town. So the way it's basically that if they're able to build, that this is the mitigation that they would offer the town. They did mention that it comes off the table in the form, if there's a lawsuit of any sort, that these types of things would probably come off the table. So I can say pretty confidently that this is an exchange, I guess, for if they have a smooth process to build their building. Now, again, as Enzo said before, it's not up to us whether or not, it's almost more up to them based on what they file for a permit, what their application, the details of their application and how that falls into the zoning and the state law. So
what are we talking about for mitigation measures that we think that are needed in anticipation of this?
Well, we explored a few different things. Got an estimate for a 2-inch mill and overlay of Nahant Road from start to finish. From the causeway all the way.
Just paving, or
mill and complete
right. Mm-hmm.
Pavement over that was about $500,000 estimate, $450,000 to $500,000 estimate. We have the 40 steps revetment project is about $500,000 project there, which we would anticipate any type of construction vehicles in that area would, we argue that it would
exacerbate the problem.
Yep.
What about the sewer that's running all the time?
And sewer, we know that we have anywhere from a $3 million to potentially $8 million or more project in our sewer system. We're going through that process right now of evaluating the best way to solve our problems with our sewer infrastructure. But those problems exist before we add any type of additional load to the system. So we factored that. We're factoring those numbers in as well. And as you know, those impacts, we're going through the process right now of evaluating the ENF that they've filed with MEPA and trying to determine what the impacts that this project is going to have on the town. And part of that process is to try to estimate the monetary value of that.
Right.
We haven't finished that process yet. We haven't, formalized that. This is just simply what Northeastern has put on the table for their, I guess, maybe, what they are willing to do in order to mitigate.
So, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's premature to be agreeing to, $1.5 million up front if the costs to repair, Nahant Road or the revetment or deal with the sewer system as a result, or the water system or whatever, may be exponentially higher than $1.5 million. Right.
I would agree with you.
We just don't know at this point.
It would be premature. I mean, we don't even, again, they haven't filed they've filed with MIPA. You would assume
Right.
that their building permit is going to be a reflection of what they've filed with MIPA, with the state. But until that's actually submitted to the town, it's hard to really argue for a specific mitigation, right?
No, I'm, as you know, I'm fully supportive of looking at what they have filed on the ENF, and the Nahant Preservation Trust has retained its own counsel, and it's retained Camp Dresser and McKee for engineering services to do a peer review. So we are entirely supportive of the process to understand what those impacts are. So, and we encourage the town to join with us in that and, retain their own consultant. And I know you're interested in doing that, so.
Yeah, we're listening to Northeastern because if the worst-case scenario of Northeastern being able to build up there comes true, it would be our job to make sure that to limit the impacts to this town as much as possible. So that's why we are hearing what they have to say. That doesn't mean we are agreeing or negotiating. It's simply preparing for that type of situation.
Right. I mean, reviewing the history of how this process has evolved with Northeastern has not necessarily suggested that Northeastern is approaching it in the same listening way that you're suggesting we are. If anything, it seems to me, having gone through this process, having been pretty involved in this process from the beginning, we have met with them. The town has, as Richie noted, indicated with 1,700 signatures back in April that they respectfully requesting that they reconsider it. Those 1,700 people have not moved out of town. All summer they met with people. I think that the two main themes for the people that they met with were they were willing to consider compromise, if you will, but didn't want the building to encroach on the parkland that is east of the bunker. Didn't ask that they consider putting the building to scale. Neither of those things happened. They came to us in December with a public hearing. They presented 3 alternatives. None of those alternatives addressed the 2 main concerns. We did a survey. I finally saw the results of those survey. The town spoke 10-1 in opposition to any of those options. To me, it feels like they're trying to jam it down our throats and pay us off. But I think that we are correct in listening, but I cannot imagine, simply taking money and giving up the 2 things that are most important to the town. So, and you know, with all due respect, why are they offering us anything? If it is purely Wayne Wilson that makes that decision, why are they offering us 5 cents? They haven't for 50 years. I don't understand.
I would ask them on Monday that question. I can't speak for that, I can't answer that for you, but I would ask them on Monday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's go along. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Excuse me? Wait. No.
About this?
No. Hang on. Hold on.
We have Bayview Ave next.
Okay. Did you want to comment on the Northeastern? Okay, go ahead.
Alice Court, 7 Valley Road. I had said earlier that I had comments, but I didn't want to do it prematurely. It has to do with my knowledge of my husband's experience and academic institutions negotiating for long-term agreements. So when they're trying to get, negotiating with an entity for a lease of 50 to 100 years or something like that, they'll set a price per year of payment, and then after 10 or 15 years, they renegotiate because of increasing costs. Taxes, infrastructure repairs, and that kind of thing, market value. Now, you might say that's not quite analogous because Northeastern owns this and we're not the landlord. That's true up to a point. But in fact, the Nahant and its citizens have been paying all of the infrastructure costs and the costs of fire and police for Northeastern for 50 years. And their agreement, as far as I understand it, was that they were going to protect it as a natural resource in addition to having this marine science center that was relatively small. They also, at that time, my understanding is that they agreed that they would compensate the town with the scholarships. But it took decades for them to begin to compensate the town for the scholarships until someone said, hey, what's the deal? Where are those scholarships? And then it's only within the past 6 years, maybe, that they've given money, the $25,000 to the Johnson School. I would have this information in hand if they had answered our very specific questions that we asked in December about what their actual compensation was to the town, both in monetary or monetary equivalent value. They chose not to answer that question at all. So my point, I appreciated Josh figuring out the small percentage that in 40 years their contribution would be. But the other really significant thing is then it stops. Then it's just like $25,000 a year to the Johnson School. And you've got a building that's probably going to last another 60 years because these things are built to last a long time unless, there's an earthquake or something or the water rises. So then Nahant's completely carrying the load once again for a prolonged period of time of all of their usages of Nahant services. I understand the sewer system needs work and that it was done 30 years ago. Okay, so you've got 30 years from now, you've got another sewer problem that's going to need replacement. We know that, or we have every reason to believe, that Northeastern is way overbuilding. So when they have told us, even though their hiring numbers keep shifting, that they're going to have 80 people, and then maybe it's more people, but those maybe are part-time people, and they haven't been, steady on those numbers either. So my anticipation is that their usage for the building massively increases, their sewage use, their road use, and so forth. So I'm just stressing that this is not a good deal for the town. And I don't think any deal is going to be offered by Northeastern that isn't just a good deal for Northeastern and not for Nahant. Thank you.
Alice, I'm sorry, in the beginning you asked I think you were asking me to clarify one piece, but I didn't catch what you were saying in the beginning. No question, okay.
Marilyn, you want?
Marilyn Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. I think the word we have to concentrate on as a community is trust. And I personally have a lack of trust for the university. They had this plan in place without sharing it with us for years. That is dishonest. I mean, I think it was really interesting. We went to an environmental conference at the aquarium, and one of the heads of the department said the most important thing is to build up your community relationships and to have the community be part of the process. Here we are, years later. I mean, last year, those of us that were at that very first meeting, it was shocking. You were there, Enzo, I know you were right behind me. It was a shocking meeting to hear what Northeastern was giving as a presentation to MEPA to get approval for their pumping system last year. And they wanted that to go through with all of us not knowing anything. And they almost succeeded. They were so close to succeeding last year. If it wasn't for observant Nahant citizens that were walking up at East Point and saw all these orange flags on all of the trees on top of the bunker and started asking questions and discovered that there was a meeting happening for them to get approvals for these huge pipes to suck the water out of the ocean for the use in their labs and then put it back in the ocean again. If that did not happen, they would have already had that approval. So I personally want to thank all those observant Nahant citizens that picked up on that and made us aware. And it's disheartening to read Northeastern's magazines and hear that they had plans to build in our community years ago. And here we are, 1 year later, still not knowing the full impact. We've gotten over 400 pages. Bobby Joe just got the full thing, I believe, today and put it on the town website. And I will say to you, it's hard to read. Billy and I had to look at it with magnifying glasses, and it's not just because we're old and senior citizens. The printing on it is so small. The maps are so minuscule. Shouldn't we, as citizens in this community, have a full knowledge of everything? I personally do not trust them. I mean, I found their own publications admitting to the world about a global vision, and I questioned a scientist up there. I said, you're trying to build a global reputation across the world. You're going to save the world. What have you done at home with us here in Nahant for over 50 years? Have you gone on boats with lobstermen? Have you done research about the impact of the water that you're putting in the bay? Have you talked to any of the Nahant citizens? I would have appreciated the president coming here and giving us a conversation about what his vision is and listening to us. We've paid taxes here. They don't. They haven't given a penny. And why is it coincidental that the money has arrived in the last few years? Guess what, folks? They had this vision in mind. They were trying to pacify us. I don't know about you, but I don't like being marginalized. I really don't. And I think that it's insulting. They are ignoring us. They're throwing citizens off of Canoe Beach. I know of a person that was there with a 2-year-old that got thrown off of Canoe Beach. I know of, people on the internet being called fringe nut. Oh, she's just a fringe nut. And it wasn't referring to me, it was referring to a very dear friend of mine in this community that I have a lot of respect for. Well, maybe, I don't know what they call me, or what they call you, or what they call any of us. Do you call that respect? That is disgraceful from a university professor. So I don't trust them. I absolutely do not trust this university. We have been warned, both by Roxbury and Burlington, about the lies that they got in the overdevelopment that happened in their community. Take your education and your vision and go elsewhere.
Just one last thing I actually meant to say when Jeff was speaking and you reminded me, Marilyn. So comments are due, like I said, comments are due on June 20th, unless, of course...
30th.
Sorry.
We're going to ask for an extension.
I'm sorry, yeah, correct. They're due July 1st. Apologies. We're asking for an extension, but we'd love to see, you know, if you guys are putting together comments and submitting them to MIPA, please, you know, send a draft to the town as well. We'd be happy to review those and include those in our comments as well. So if you have drafts, you can drop off at the town hall. And I think we created an email account, residents@nahant.org, that you could send them there as well.
And I don't disagree with you, Marilyn. They did a poor job advertising the very first one. So I don't disagree with you.
All right, let's move on. The next thing on the...
Can I just add one comment here?
No, go ahead.
So, on the comments, we are applying for the extension, but it's Northeastern's decision, so if you want to make sure your comment gets in, get it in before July 1st. And I also wanted to comment on the fact that we're years into this process now. Looking at the MIPA form is very detailed, right down to the size of the downspouts coming off their building, and I still haven't seen what the building looks like. I've seen a box on a PowerPoint slide. I find that very disingenuous.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
And they're just, don't forget, they're an advisory board only, MIPA. They're not the ones that pull the trigger.
Okay, let's move on to 34 Bay Avenue, a vote to approve the current appraisal. Mrs. Keller.
Okay, so
Well, Elizabeth Kelly, 34 Baby Way. I know you didn't receive the valuation, the appraisal from Sheila. She assured me that you would have it for tonight's meeting when I spoke to her, and now she is off for the entire week to some seminar. But under Chapter 30B, it says requires that you determine the property's value by using procedures customarily accepted by the appraising professional as valid. Now, the town-owned land study committee told me I had to get my own appraisal, which I had to pay for. So why did I have to do that if now Sheila's going to come up with an appraisal?
that's a good question.
Because it says also here that you may hire an appraiser, although you're not required to do so.
Town council's got an answer for you.
Yeah, the difference is when that appraisal was completed, it did not include the restrictions that are now put upon that parcel. So the question now is, that parcel with those restrictions, is there a different value to it? Is it more valuable, is it less valuable? So the value has changed since that appraisal. That's why there needs to be a new one, to make sure it's
Right,
accurate.
but now you're not going to meet for another month. I mean, my life is on hold with this situation. It's been almost a year since the town voted to sell me the land.
Can we get the Board of Assessors to get on her and have this done? Get this...
I mean, she's just not doing anything.
This was promised that she would have it done. It's not done. And then we can have a meeting next week if we need to. It's ridiculous to tie her up like that.
No, I'm not. Next week, no, I'm not going to be available.
Oh, well, or the week after. I mean, I just...
I mean,
And I don't know why Sheila has the authority. She's not a licensed appraiser. Why can she do it?
Did your appraiser put the covenants in there? Did she anticipate covenants or restrictions?
I think in that page you read, it referred to something about restrictions, but I'm not sure.
It hadn't been proposed at that time, so I doubt it. But the fact is here, and I understand it's frustrating, and Beth and I have had this conversation, and I understand, you know, the timing of it is frustrating, but the fact is, you know, this is town selling town property to Beth and to who, it's most likely going to be Beth. But the appraisal needs to be certified by the assessor with the new restrictions on there before we can do that.
It's got to be sent to the registry of deeds, too. Stamped.
Has to be approved first.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that process?
What was the question?
So how about can you talk quickly about the process, the next steps?
Well, the next step is get the appraisal. And then once that's done, anyone can put an offer for it, but it would only make sense for you to put an offer for it. And then at that point, the board will vote whether to accept that offer or not. And assuming they accept the offer, then we just go through the transaction, go from there.
And does it have to go to the registry of deeds?
The central registry? No, only if it only goes to the central registry if the selectmen offer to sell for less than its value of the appraisal. Then it has to go to the central registry explaining why it's being sold for less than its value. I don't anticipate that happening, to be honest with you.
Right.
And the process is it's not nearly as severe as it would be if it was more valuable property. If it was $35,000 or more, the process is much more involved. But in this case, it's not nearly as much involved. So that is the rest of the process. And I think we should point out the reason why we're both in this fix is because someone skirted the rules decades ago, and we're just trying to make sure we're getting the rules done correctly this time. Not to mention the other issues like yours are more extensive actually in Little Nahant. So we have to keep in mind we're in this situation because someone down the line didn't do the right thing. We're doing the right thing to make sure this doesn't happen again.
So what am I looking at, 2 more months?
I don't know.
I mean, I gotta wait another month for you to meet, to vote, if Sheila even gives you the appraisal.
Well, I'll make sure with the town administrator that the assessor gets the appraisal up here. And our schedule is for the summer, but I think we're gonna be meeting next couple of weeks, we have some personnel matters that have to be handled, so that has to be done too. So we'll be going into a regular meeting and then go into executive session, but we can vote on that, okay, on that appraisal.
We need to get it done.
Well, we need to get it done. I agree, but again, it's,
It's very frustrating.
I think again.
I mean, this could have been done if she did her job.
Well, again, the onus is really, that partial that was brought into question when you went to get your deed, that took some time to get that done, and you had the wall on one of the meetings that we heard, and then you threw that out and you just went for the front stairs, and I think the boards finally agreed, after talking to all the neighbors up there, that we have no problem with it. We just got to get the assessors. When did you ask her for that document?
She said she was working on, right after the meeting that you had the yes vote.
Okay.
So I had spoken to her right after that, and she said, 6 months ago I had done something. She couldn't find it. She's, her office
again,
is...
I don't want to...
So then she said, when I went up Friday to check, she said, yes, I'm going to have it for you.
Yep.
She didn't tell me she was leaving for a week.
Well, the town manager, he'll get the yes from her.
We need to talk to the Board of Assessors, her bosses, and have this done, get it done, so that we can get this rolling for her. I mean, I would do it for anybody, so they need to,
understand.
I don't think there's any excuse that at all, that
I mean, what's it going to take
she
her,
was
15
upended like
minutes
that.
to
She
do
was
it?
just, she's told she's
got
going to
the
have something,
paperwork.
and then she disappears.
She didn't disappear. She's
I
at
know
a
that.
conference
I
for
understand that. I
an
should've
assessor
said that.
conference. I understand the frustration. I get it. This was voted on in August. The town approved this sale in August. It went through the Town Land Study Committee. It then sped up pretty significantly here at the board, and now the appraisal has to be adjusted because of restrictions that we put on it to satisfy neighbors. So I understand the frustration that it wants to be done. I think the town is trying to get it done as quickly as possible. We will ask Sheila to get the appraisal adjusted because of the covenants now that are being placed on it. It should actually reduce the value of the property, which is a good thing. So I think we just need to go through this step. I understand it's frustrating. We're working hard to get it done, and I will, as soon as Sheila gets back from the conference, I will ask her to get it done as quickly as possible, and then I will ask the board to have a meeting as quickly as possible to vote on it.
Yeah, as soon as
But
we
there's
get the thing, we'll
there'll
process
still
it
be-
through here, all right?
There's still a process after you approve, once you get the appraisal, then there's an offer, then you have to adopt the offer, then the transaction process. These things take some time.
Well, I understand. I just, I think, I would ask you to let the Board of Assessors know too.
I will.
Thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda,
Okay, next is the,
Josh.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to submit to the Planning Board an article referred to the Board of Selectmen by citizens petition to amend the zoning bylaw for review pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 40A, Section 5. Sections to be amended under the proposed article include 4.10, uses permitted in the Natural Resource District, Subpart E, entitled Prohibited Uses. At the end of item 2, between the word above and the final period, insert the parenthetical clause, see other parts of section 4.10, subparts A through D, and also sections 2.02, definition for nonprofit religious or educational purposes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Josh.
You submitted this, Mike, but you didn't explain the intent or the purpose, and as I read it, I can't really tell what the intent of the purpose is. I've looked into it as best I can, and it appears to me that the intent, or at least the result, is to perpetuate a conflict within the Nahant zoning bylaws. Maybe you can correct me about that if I'm wrong, but I don't understand why we'd want to deliberately make an effort to perpetuate a conflict within the zoning bylaws.
This is not an effort to perpetuate conflict. It is an effort to clarify simply. Shortly before the town meeting, there was a public meeting of the planning board which offered some information to the town relative to conflicts in 410. During that presentation, a lawyer, I believe it was Peter Laurie, expressed the opinion that there were a number of conflicts back and forth in various sections of the zoning bylaw. Immediately after he spoke, I also spoke, and I expressed the opinion that I disagreed with his opinion, and that I thought that the existing zoning bylaw was indeed correct and did not say what the lawyer represented it to say. This clarification, which is all it is a way of taking a look at the existing zoning bylaws and seeing that if the zoning bylaws are read that way, that indeed a lot of the ambiguities or disagreements disappear. So it's a simple citizen's suggestion to an amendment to the zoning bylaw. I have submitted it through two routes. You mentioned in the motion you just read that I submitted it as a petition to the Board of Selectmen. I also submitted it to the Planning Board. They, at the same meeting, voted to refer that amendment to you so that the Board of Selectmen could send it back to them so that they could schedule it for a public hearing. Either of those two methods should serve to get it on the Planning Board's schedule for attention. And I'm here to ask you to simply forward the proposed amendment to the Planning Board, let them advertise it for a public hearing and discussion by the Planning Board, so that we may move on.
I guess my inclination is to ask you to write an explanation for this thing, because, you know, when I look at this, I don't know what it's trying to accomplish, you know.
Well, I'll answer that.
That could certainly be presented to the planning board at a public hearing, and I would normally offer that.
Yeah, but you're trying to get, now, you well know, the planning board changed that. That one in the zoning bylaw and the subsection thing. You're trying to get back that religious and educational in our zoning board back in. Now, they've already voted to throw it out, and they've gone through the process, and now all of a sudden
They voted to hold a public hearing.
They haven't had a public hearing
They
yet.
haven't had a public hearing.
The town meeting needs to vote to take it out.
Well,
This has to go back to the planning board. We have to send it back to them,
Right.
just like we had to send the other one back to
well, we
them.
just got this, so, yeah, the planning board, okay, so.
So let's
but
just-
you're- And this article here, your recommendation with this thing is trying to get back in that zoning of educational purposes and religious. You're trying to put it back in.
My
No.
My intent
It's either yes or no.
is
It's a
to-
yes or no question. It's not something
No.
for the...
No, the answer to your
That's why-
question is no.
I'll say, but it doesn't say that in this memo. It does not say in this petition. You're confusing, it's kind of confusing, you read it. That's why my good colleague Josh, I'm not sure about, I haven't talked to Enzo about it, but I think it's confusing. The way you wrote this up, and it's misleading, to say the least. You should have, if you're going to write a petition, say exactly what you want to do there.
Well, he did.
It says, you know,
I want to insert one parenthetical phrase in the zoning bylaws. That's it.
All right.
It's right here. On the second page.
So why, and what's the benefit to the town? That's what I don't know. I don't know.
Well, let's put it this way. I think there's certainly a lot of discussion about what the zoning bylaws mean and how they would be interpreted. And as you know, if there are ambiguities, that can get you into a long court battle. The town has been saying we have problems with some of our budgets. We're spending money faster than we would like to. We would like to constrain some. The question is, we have had these zoning bylaws for almost 30 years. What exactly do they mean? Is this the first time that Northeastern is asked to build an additional building on their property? I think the answer is no. Yet now there's discussion. You can't build another building on your property. Why was the answer to that question different 5 years ago when they put up a genomic center on the site? I think the zoning bylaws are clear. You simply have to read them. This is to clarify one particular phrase. Under the section in 410 where it covers prohibited uses, it says you may not build a building or structure except as permitted above. And the question is, what does except as permitted above? My parenthetical phrase points to two places to look. That's it.
Yeah. So what confuses me is it pointing to the proposed one that was passed by the planning board last week, or does it refer to the as currently written? Because certainly if it refers to the one that's already proposed, it's confusing at best.
While the planning board has voted to look at one proposal, I am offering a second proposal. Much as in the informational meeting, there were two alternative views offered. Nobody's made a decision yet. The planning board gets to consider it. They get to hear from all of the citizens on what they think about it, and the end result would be a recommendation to a town meeting. And it's what the people vote that makes the difference. Without their vote, neither of these alternatives will pass.
So are they, in your mind, contradictory? The two proposals?
They are alternatives, they are not contradictory.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at is, if this town meeting took place and the people were to vote, they would have to vote on, it would sort of be, pick this one or that one. They're not cohabitable, so to speak. Is that?
It may be difficult to pick both. It may not be also difficult to pick both, but I think the public hearing and discussion by the planning board will determine that.
Ultimately, I think...
They can reach that opinion because that's their job.
I have a question for council. Before this, we have to send this back to the planning board.
It's just a procedural matter, really, at
It's
this point.
procedural.
The conversation
This
is
not-
accurate, but at the end of the day,
It's really not even a
procedural.
vote. Let me ask you this. The process is, when you submit bylaws, the town votes on them. You have to submit them. The town clerk takes them and submits them to the Attorney General's office. Correct?
After town meeting.
After town meeting?
Yeah.
Correct. Now, after town meeting, she submits them to the Attorney General's office. They look at them and they say, they see in a natural resource area and not permitted under educational, religious, and nonprofit organizations. I would think that they would just send that back and say, you can't do that.
They only have one job when they review these bylaws for the towns. They just ensure that they don't violate state law or the Constitution.
Well, that is state law.
Well, then they would kick that back, saying it's an
So
inappropriate
I
bylaw.
don't understand, I don't understand.
So I think what you're saying, Enzo, is you're referring to the proposal from a week ago, right?
Yes, and I think what's going to happen is I think the attorney, if it passes, I think the Attorney General's office is going to say, look, you can't do that.
So
state law says you can't do it.
What that proposal says is that for educational or religious institutions in natural resource areas, we changed to an N and added the note, except as permitted by the Dover Amendment, right?
That's state law.
And that's state law.
Right.
So here's an example from another town that did it exactly the same way, and that's the approval from the Attorney General. So I don't think it's going to get kicked back.
Okay, oh, well, I'll read it later.
Okay.
One way to shortcut the process is you can send sort of an informal request to the Attorney General, the municipal division, and it won't be binding, but they'll let you know that, yeah, this probably won't pass. That's been done before.
Okay, what I see is religious and education uses are authorized in all districts except conservation districts. There's a big difference between a conservation district and a natural resource area. The conservation, we can stop. They can be stopped. The only leg we have to stand on is if it's in a floodplain or not a conservation district. This means, to me, it means nothing. It's a big difference.
I'm just giving you an example.
So I just think rather than argue about it here, let's just send it to the planning board and let them be done with it.
Can I have my copy back? I'll give you
Could I speak?
It's my only copy. So.
That'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, Jeff.
I think we heard on December 11th, Northeastern University announced that they were not taking advantage of the Dover Amendment, that they did not need to because our zoning bylaws were ambiguous to the point that they believe they have an absolute right under our zoning bylaws to build in a natural resource district where no one else does. That is because there is a conflict between, or an inconsistency between the section that Michael refers to, the natural resource district section, and our use table. The amendment that was proposed by the planning board and submitted here addresses that issue in a way to make it clear that the only way in which Northeastern University would be able to build in the Natural Resource District would be through the utilization of the Dover Amendment. I think that what is happening here is that Michael has come to this board to ask it to adopt his proposed zoning amendment, which in my mind is 180 degrees away from the zoning amendment that had been proposed by the planning board, referred here, referred back, and as to which there is a public hearing. In my mind, this will obfuscate, will confuse people only. It is not in our interest to have two zoning bylaws there.
So are you asking us to not send this back to the planning board?
No, I'm not asking that.
Okay, so
I'm
then
suggesting.
Suggest it at the planning board meeting.
Excuse me?
When we have the hearing for the planning board.
No.
Suggest it there.
The issue is whether the zoning bylaw that Michael has proposed has been properly submitted. There is a statute which explains the ways in which a zoning amendment can be put forward.
Well,
one of those ways is the Board of Selectmen can choose to do that, but one of the ways is not by submitting a petition of 19 signatures.
So how many people did you have, Jeff?
I had one. I suggested to the planning board that they consider this.
No, that's not what was said at the planning board meeting. What was said at the planning board meeting was that you
I don't care what they said. What happened
he's
was...
a lawyer, and he told us at that planning board meeting...
that I gave him the proposed...
Okay, one at a
whatever.
time, one at a time, one at a time.
I'm on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm going to speak, okay?
I have no problem with
And
that.
I'm telling you, I know what I heard, okay?
Fine.
So he has something that he wants to put forward. Let them decipher it. Let them have their hearings, okay? You are saying that you don't think it's right. It's going to go back to them anyway.
No, it doesn't have to.
Jeff.
It's improperly presented.
Okay. You think
You
it's
can ask your town council.
Richard Snyder clearly said to me that night that anybody can give him a petition and they'll hear it. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Let them hear it. He's made a petition to the planning board.
So let him hear it.
I'm saying do not refer it back. Do not refer it back. Do not adopt it. Do not refer it back. He's got a separate petition in front of the planning board. They can decide whether or not to adopt it and send it forward. That's the correct procedure.
Then let them do it. Let them handle it.
Exactly.
So why do we need to go through all this?
I'm sorry?
Why do we need to go through all this? We're going to send it back to the planning board.
No, I don't want you to send it back. I want you to sit on it.
No.
Let the the planning board already has it. It is an improperly presented
motion to, I would entertain a motion that we send this back to the planning board, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me understand. The planning board's already got a copy of this.
We have to send it back to them by law. Am I right, Dan?
No.
We don't have to.
We can vote no like you did last time.
And you can.
Right?
Go right ahead.
Give us advice on this.
Well, first of all, my understanding is Mike is asking for it to go back to the planning board. Am I right?
I submitted it to the planning board.
Like Mr. Schneider told him to.
Let Mike should be at the mic.
Mike, can you just step up?
Mike, hang on. Mike, come to the mic.
I submitted not a petition, but just the proposed zoning bylaw change to Richard Snyder. And at their meeting on Thursday, June 6th, they voted 4-0 to forward it to the Board of Selectmen so the Board of Selectmen could send it back to them. Exactly the same route that followed Mr. Mussman's submission.
And you don't care you don't care what the planning board said?
No, I do care.
No, you said you just said that you don't care what they said.
I don't care how you characterize what Richard
No, I'm
Snyder said about
characterizing
me.
the way it
That's
was-
what I don't
The way
care.
it was explained to me at that meeting was, you sent it to them. Only you. There was one petitioner, and that was you.
I only asked that they consider it and adopt it, and then submit
And it wasn't on their agenda.
All right, hold on.
Was it properly agended?
Hold on, Enzo, hold on.
Come on, Jeff.
Yeah, that's, my understanding is it has to go back to the planning board. Now, if you see some caveat against that, we can talk offline about that, but my understanding has to go back to the planning board so they can consider.
Dan, so we just forward this to the planning.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And then all this conversation should be had at the planning board hearing.
Okay, let them have it. Okay, thank you. You're all done.
No.
Peter O'Gall, 391 Nahant Road.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to cut off all talk on this matter and just move it forward, please.
Okay, let's go.
All right?
All right.
Let's be done with it.
What is your pleasure?
The motion is to send it back to the planning board. Let them deal with it.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
No.
I'll second it for discussion. Discussion.
We just discussed it.
Okay.
I have no further discussion.
No further discussion from me? No further discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, it's 2-1. So it goes back to the planning board. That's another one. All right, Tony? Okay, Peter.
I was here at the last Board of Select meeting, and I got up here and, with a little bit of passion, described what I think is going on, and the same situation has risen again. And I thought it's worthwhile for the audience, if not for you guys, to hear the truth. So, because despite what's going on here, the people listening here believe that what's going on here is that Mike is submitting something, a document, to weaken the town's defense to fight off Northeastern's expansion. And Josh is trying to, and Jeff is trying to, and 1,700 residents, including Enzo, Richie, and T, who signed the document that went to the president of Northeastern, are trying to stop this expansion despite the extortion money that Northeastern's trying to give. I, for the life of me, as only a 15-year resident, and not the brightest star in the sky, but I'm a pretty logical person, don't understand why anyone would want to weaken our ability to defend the town for generations against this onslaught from Northeastern, even with the money. So that's what most of the town sees. I'm just giving you guys the benefit of what reality is, okay? Because there's no reality here. Some people are fighting for Northeastern, and some people are fighting against Northeastern, and that's what we see, okay? So you can make it any way you want.
You pointed your finger at me. I'm fighting for Northeastern?
Enzo,
Come out of my mouth.
Enzo,
Has it ever come out of my mouth?
Enzo, I'm speaking now. I'm speaking.
Okay,
I'm a
and
resident.
I'm on the Board of Selectmen, and I can.
I'm the
and I can tell
taxpayer.
you right
Then
now.
tell me to sit down,
Okay,
you can do
so-
that. You want me to sit down?
No, I don't
Okay.
want you to sit down.
Okay.
But you don't need to look at
I'm
me
directing
when
it
you
at
say-
all of you, and what I'm saying is...
He has
there's
that
only-
right. He has a right to send that to the planning
He does.
board.
I didn't say he didn't have a right. I'm not talking about rights, I'm talking about the optics. The optics are, the reality is, that 1,700 residents signed a document, including you guys, that said we're against it. So anything that can be done by you guys as our leaders should be done to stop them. And I don't know why you're not doing it. And it's for money, then ask for the money. For the last time, ask us for the money.
Peter, tell us.
Tell you what?
Can
Can I be more direct?
Let's.
Can I be more direct?
You want to be honest, Peter? Okay.
That's
You-
all
you
I am
say
is
the
honest.
truth.
I'm the only one honest here.
Truth. Okay. You came to me and you said, first of all, you were having meetings with Northeastern prior to us, our knowledge.
You want to talk about those? I'll be glad to.
No, don't need to.
No, let's talk about it.
You told me that you were going to give us $5 million.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I never said that. I said, come to the people and ask for money to do eminent domain.
You would come up for
Eminent
$5
domain,
million.
Enzo.
We can go right down the line.
There hasn't been one asked yet.
Wait, hold on.
I'm not going to get into an argument.
You don't want to argue, do you? You don't want to argue.
Hold on. we're just going over.
Good, I'll argue.
All news, and I really don't want to.
Okay.
All right? Thank you
You want
very
me to
much.
sit down? Thank
you
you.
very much. I don't want to shut it. Let's gonna shut it off. We'll be
Okay,
here till
I move the
midnight.
Board of
We're gonna-
Selectmen
We're
adjourn.
gonna talk about Northeastern.
I move the Board of Selectmen adjourn to executive session, not to return to regular session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Mr. Antrim?
I would second it, but I think we have closing announcements first.
Yes.
Right there, Richie. It's just one.
Yes. The town hall will be closed July 4th and July 5th. And we have fireworks that night, thanks to Jim McCarthy. And I hope you all go down and see it, plus the races and the 4th of July committee. And by the way, I got to speak for the 4th of July committee. We need volunteers to get out of the play, on the July 5th for judges and, things like that. That they could use some help down there. So maybe take some of your energy and go down there. We'll put you in the three-legged race. All right.
I'll read it again.
No, you don't have to read it. Motion's been made.
Seconded.
Motion's been seconded. I'm going to close the meeting for the regular selectmen's meeting tonight. We're going to be going in an executive session. We're dealing with some personnel issues, but we will not be coming back into a regular session. And we voted already to sign these. We'll sign those before we go, so you can go home? Yes.
We have to sign them all.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, thank you.